While the current administration is busy dismantling federal agencies and slashing budgets in the name of so-called efficiency, Senator Ed Markey, the veteran Democrat from Massachusetts, took to the Senate floor to sound the alarm on something that actually matters: the cybersecurity of America's water systems. Joined by water sector expert Scott Dewhirst, this hearing laid bare an uncomfortable truth: our critical infrastructure is dangerously exposed, and the clock is ticking. Here's what you need to know.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much. Mr. Dewhirst, your testimony outlines recommended legislative solutions to address the cybersecurity challenges facing the water sector, including my bill, the Water Intelligence Security and Cyber Threat Protection Act. And I was proud to develop that legislation with the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies. Boston Water and Sewer played a central role in establishing the Water Sharing and Analysis Center, which is known as Water ISAC. So water infrastructure cybersecurity is a point of pride in our state. In fact, in 2024, Boston Water and Sewer experienced a ransomware attack that Water ISAC successfully assisted them in navigating, avoiding widespread damage to our system. Mr. Dewhirst, are there any other organizations that compare with Water ISAC in terms of services and real-time assistance to water utilities?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thank you for your support of that bill. I think that's a wonderful avenue for us, all utilities, to take advantage of and to really make Water ISAC an important pillar in our response to cybersecurity threats. I would say many utilities have to have third-party assistance at the ready. We have contracts that are, typically a zero retainer contract with different firms to be ready to respond to a cyber incident should that occur. So I think Water ISAC can provide some initial support and some initial guidance if something were to occur, but I go back to the need to have a plan, a cyber plan in place, and it's a response plan in place to know how to behave as soon as that happens.
So right now, there are no other organizations that are comparable?
Not that I'm really aware of. I'll defer to others, yes.
So it's clear that if we want to support our water systems in dealing with cyber threats, we need to support this water cybersecurity organization. Mr. Dewhirst, do you agree that the primary barrier for water utilities to access these vital cybersecurity services is simply funding?
I think it's funding, and also I think time. I think we've heard up here a lot with the rural systems, especially. They've got a lot of things they're doing. They don't have dedicated staff to certain things, so I think that's an aspect. So I think Water ISAC can hopefully
funding the principal reason?
Funding's a big deal, and so we're trying to
vision without funding is a hallucination, right? So you can
absolutely,
say solve the
absolutely.
Problem, but if you're
we need money
without funding. How are you going to get it done?
We need funding. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So thank you, and that's why I introduced my legislation, which would provide the funding to water utilities to access the cybersecurity services offered by Water ISAC, and I look forward to working with my colleagues on that. The reason I'm really apprehensive about this is that there was a cyber incident called Stuxnet back in 2010, and it really drew a lot of attention to this entire area. And so the CIA and the national security apparatus of the United States came to me as the chairman of the Energy Subcommittee to ask me if I would pass legislation that would mandate that electric utilities in America upgrade their cybersecurity. And so I took my counterpart, Fred Upton, the ranking member on the committee. We went down, we got the top secret briefing. We could see how dangerous it was. Then we brought all the other members down to get the secret briefing. They were terrified at the fact that the Iranians and the North Koreans and the Russians and the Chinese were all attacking our electric grid system every single day, trying to find the vulnerabilities, getting ready for the moment when they could do it. And again, Thomas Alva Edison would recognize our electric system in terms of the level of protections that are built in. So we had a piece of legislation, we drafted it, we passed it on a bipartisan basis. Okay. What happened was it came over here to the Senate, this wonderful institution that I now serve in. Senator Kyle from Arizona got lobbied by his electric utility, and they didn't want to spend the money, even though Fort Huachuca in Arizona is on the public grid, making it easy access into that incredibly important military facility in our country. And it died over here in the Senate. And it has died year after year, even though we passed it unanimously in the House, because the electric utilities did not want to spend the money. But it's a game of cat and mouse, right? And the cat are all of these incredibly powerful, super sophisticated cyber, giants around the world. And the mouse is our electric grid and our water systems. Huh? And they're unprotected. They still haven't had the upgrade in the cybersecurity protections which they need, waiting for the eventual, inevitable, inexorable, successful, catastrophic attack. So it's just time for us to get real about this issue. It's only now 100 times worse because of AI, in terms of the sophistication of the technology which can be used. And it's time for us to put the mandate in place and the funding that accompanies that, so that all of these vulnerable infrastructure systems are able to protect themselves against the attack which is coming. The only question is, are we going to protect against it? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Senator Markey made something painfully clear today. The United States has known about these vulnerabilities since at least 2010, since Stuxnet exposed the terrifying intersection of cyber warfare and critical infrastructure. The CIA came to Congress. Bipartisan legislation was drafted and passed unanimously in the House, and then it died. Not because of partisan gridlock, but because corporate lobbyists from the electric utility industry whispered into the right ears in the Senate. Senator John Kyle of Arizona, a Republican, killed it. The industry didn't want to spend the money. And so, America's grid remained exposed. Fort Huachuca, a major U.S. military intelligence installation, sits on that same vulnerable public grid to this day. Now let's bring this into 2025. We are living in a moment where the executive branch is actively gutting the very federal agencies responsible for defending our infrastructure. CISA, the EPA's enforcement capacity, cybersecurity staffing across the board, all in the name of what this administration calls efficiency. So while Senator Markey is in a Senate hearing room pleading for funding to protect your drinking water from Russian and Chinese hackers, the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue is busy cutting the budget for the people who would actually do that job. And let's not ignore the elephant in the room. Senator Markey referenced AI, and he's right. The sophistication of nation-state cyber operations has increased exponentially. Iran, North Korea, Russia, China, these aren't amateur operations. These are state-funded, AI-enhanced, persistent threats probing American infrastructure every single day. And what is our national response? Budget cuts, deregulation, and a president who has publicly praised the very authoritarian leaders directing these attacks. Scott Dewhirst, a man who works in this sector every day, sat there and confirmed what we all feared. There is no comparable organization to Water ISAC. There is no backup plan. And the primary barrier? Funding. As Markey put it so bluntly, and I think this line deserves to be remembered, vision without funding is a hallucination. That is the state of American infrastructure security in 2025. We know the threat. We've known it for 15 years. We have the legislative framework. We have people like Markey willing to fight for it. But we also have an administration that would rather dismantle government than defend it, and a Republican Senate that has historically sided with industry profits over national security. The attack Senator Markey described as inevitable, inexorable, and catastrophic, that's not fear-mongering. That is the professional assessment of every cybersecurity expert who has testified before Congress in the last decade. The only question, and Markey asked it directly, is whether we will act before it happens.